Hello, everyone. Guess what time it is? That's right. It is Tuesday, and it is 4 o'clock. That's right. And so here we are, and we are live, and it is super fun. So I am checking out my control screen here so I can make sure everything runs very smoothly. I have created a super fun slideshow to share with you today, all about desert wildlife. Okay, so if you have questions as we go, you can put them in the chat, okay? And so that is for anyone. So I'm just going to put a little note in the chat that says welcome. Okay, so if you have any questions as we go, you can feel free to put them right into the chat. So anyway, here we are, and we are talking about desert wildlife. A lot of people are trying to get away from it all, and they're headed where? To the desert. Or maybe maybe people don't want to go to the desert. Maybe you're like my children, you don't want to go to the desert because you think nothing is there. Well, today we're going to talk about some things that are there, and we're going to talk about some really cool adaptations for survival or some of these desert animals. Now, we're not going to be talking about all the animals that live in the desert today. I decided to focus in on a few. So let me share my screen. Okay, there we go. And then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, desert adaptations and desert wildlife. I really wasn't sure what to call this one. And just so you know, not all these pictures are my own. Some are not. Anyway, so what about the desert, right? Like, how can animals live there when there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of vegetation? And does anything live there? And, you know, why don't we just tear it all up or build a bunch of stuff there or whatever, because there's nothing there, right? But there's so much there, and it's really, really cool. And deserts are not all the same, and different parts of deserts are not all the same. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Nope, sorry. So here is a desert picture. This is from California's Death Valley. And now there's not a lot growing right there, but there is still evidence of wildlife here. And what is the desert like, right? So it's extremely dry area of land, doesn't have a lot of vegetation. It's one of the major types of ecosystems. It has a distinct community of plants and animals that are specially adapted to this environment. Also, generally, low annual rainfall found on every continent. They are 1/5 of the Earth's land mass, and 1/6 of the world's people live there. And they can be hot or cold, right? Because a desert could be at any elevation. And desertification arises from deforestation and the demands of human populations that settle on the semi-arid lands. So deserts are still happening. They are sort of a dynamic process. And here is another picture from California's Death Valley. I guess it's also in Nevada, huh? So there's a border there, but Death Valley is in both. And Death Valley is a super famous desert. And these are some super famous dunes in that desert. And as you can see in the front, there are plants. And so where there are plants, there are insects and birds for sure. And where there are insects and birds, there are small mammals. We're going to start with the desert cottontail. So cute. Is there another desert rabbit? Yes, there is. he's the jackrabbit, right? And he's bigger than the cottontail. And the desert cottontail does have some super cool adaptations for survival, right? So he's got that coloration. Look at how he blends in. He's got good vision and widely spaced eyes high on the head, strong legs for running, big feet for jumping, long ears for thermoregulation, and he can even play dead. There he is again. You see his big feet that help him jump and run, big ears with lots of capillaries on them to help keep him cool, fur that blends in, big eyes that are wide set. I found this online. I thought it was cute. He's got a little cottontail. He's got long ears, but not as long as ears can get on a rabbit, right? He can be grayish to reddish brown. He has whiskers. And here are some pictures of jackrabbits. I mean, not jackrabbits. Now I'm all confused. Cottontails. You can answer. I can't. So, and let's talk about, what does the desert cottontail eat? And what eats it? It eats a variety of native vegetation. And up here, there are some pictures. Would you please answer it, Sierra? Thank you. I'm sorry. It eats a variety of native vegetation, right? So it could be brush, it could be wildflowers, it could be grasses that you see growing. And what eats it? Coyotes, hawks, owls, snakes, bobcats, whatever can catch it, really. And obviously, a baby one of those is easier to catch, right? So not every cottontail makes it to adulthood. All right. So then who else? We've got the cactus wren. Cactus wrens are super cool birds that are especially adapted to the desert. Look how pretty. And look where he's sitting. Oh my goodness. Cactus wren adaptations. They build their nest in the cactus. This protects their young. They have super great coloration that helps them blend in. And they will build more than one nest. They also only lay as many eggs as there are available resources for there to be birds. And they don't drink a lot of water. They can get their water from the food they eat. This is a really popular desert adaptation, right? Super, there's what, the kangaroo rat does that, and lots of other animals that live in the desert. Their water requirements change a little bit. So there he is. He's super pretty. He's got spotting. He's got a bold white eye line and a curved bill, decurved bill. And what does it eat? It eats fruit pulp and seeds and ants and grasshoppers and beetles and other arthropods. And what eats it? Well, snakes, like the coach whip, or other snakes, maybe rattlesnakes, right? The coyote, the hawk, the fox, the bobcat, and even domestic cats can catch them. So they have to be careful, right? There aren't a whole, I mean, they need cactus. So I've got pictures here of, up here are some of the animals they eat. And down here are some of the animals that eat them. And you've got a reptile, you've got a desert tortoise. Look at that face. Desert tortoise adaptations. So they live in underground burrows, right? And underground burrows are much cooler than the area above. They can store water in a bladder. Tortoises are sort of wide. They're not shaped flat like turtles. They have a lot of space in there to carry their nutrients around, right? They can go days without food and months without water if necessary. They carry their protection with them. That's a super cool adaptation. And just like the other animals we've been talking about today, they are already colored like their environment as number one defense. They drink rainwater. They can dig a little hole for when it's going to rain, catch the water in that hole and drink it before it is absorbed into the earth. And some other things that help them out is they have a very slow metabolism, which leads to a longer lifespan for them. Desert tortoises can live more than 100 years. And here is another super cool diagram with their amazing shell, their scaled skin on their legs, their burrowing, digging claws, and a jaw for clipping plants. I love this. And there's one walking around at an educational event eating some grass. And so what does it eat? It eats various desert shrubs and grasses and cactus blooms. And there are some pictures up here of some of those things. Now what eats it? Well, ravens, crows, and coyotes. But there are not actually as many predators for the tortoise as you would think. That shell actually does provide them a lot of protection. Oh, if there are raccoons, there are not a lot of raccoons in the desert, but where there are raccoons, they will try. And you can see here, you see this shell? This is a baby desert tortoise. And ravens in the desert have learned that the younger ones have shells that are not as strong, and they are actually making an impact on populations in the wild because they are eating the delicacy of baby desert tortoises. And they're smart, they teach each other. Ooh, desert hairy scorpion having a snack. So the desert hairy scorpion has some really cool adaptations. He has a stinger at the end of his tail that injects venom. Is it crazy venom that's really going to hurt you very much? Not really. It might hurt a little, but it's not going to you're not, unless you have an allergic reaction, you're not at risk of dying. It's for something small. They have pedipalps, which are pinchers to seize and hold their prey or their mate or their enemy, right? They have 4 pairs of clawed walking legs, which makes it easier for them to climb on any surface. They have tiny hairs all over to detect vibration from nearby, like whiskers, right? And it could be from a predator or a prey. They know what's going on because of these little hairs. They have live young, if you can imagine that. They're nocturnal. They are very heat tolerant. And they also live in burrows, which are cool. This is a little diagram I found. Shows you where their stinger is, where their mouth parts are, where their pinchers are. And what do they eat? Humans is not on the list, you guys. You're okay. They eat insects, they eat spiders, they eat smaller vertebrates, and they eat other scorpions. And what eats them? Centipedes, shrews, owls, bats, coyotes, and other scorpions, right? So basically, if an animal can catch them that's bigger than they are, they'll try to have them as a snack. And then you have the famous rattlesnake, right? Beautiful. Rattlesnake adaptations. They have heat sensing pits on their face. They have a Jacobson's organ in their mouth and a forked tongue to help that Jacobson's organ work. They have fangs that inject venom. They have a rattle to discourage enemies, and they have coloration that helps them hide from predators. I found this, again, this same wonderful person, Sherry Amsel. Thank you for these beautiful diagrams we get to share. I love this picture. This is a thick-bodied snake, right? If you see a regular snake, they're usually not fat like this. They're usually thinner. And they have a head that is shaped more, it's more wide, right? It's more like an anvil. And they have fangs that work like hypodermic needles in the back of their mouth. And they have rattle at the end of their tail. This is a picture of that mouth. You can see there's a nostril there, the heat pit is here. All right, and what does he eat? Mostly desert rodents like baby cottontails and cute little kangaroo rats. And what eats it? Well, king snakes are immune to the venom of rattlesnakes, and they prefer to eat reptiles. And things like gray foxes, bobcats, hawks. Again, if they can catch it, they'll try. And even though rattlesnakes seem really scary because they have venom, if an animal can kill it before it bites them, it might be okay, right? So that does happen, and snakes are actually really fragile. So desert animals have evolved ways to help them keep cool and use less water. Because of their very special adaptations, desert animals are extremely vulnerable to changes in their habitat. And these are pictures. This was also Death Valley. There are fish that live in caves that exist under these rocks. There's like not that many of them left on the planet. And they are subspecies. They are their own little species here that have been kept apart from other species for a long, long time. They're called pupfish. And so, what happened? Oh, I'm not in order. Okay, sorry about that. So in existing deserts, some species are in peril because of climate change, right? So global warming threatens to change the ecology of these deserts, and higher temperatures add to more wildfires that change the landscape of the desert. And invasive exotic plants can take hold after a fire. So it takes longer for the natives to come in. Here is another picture of the desert. It just looks like there's nothing going on there, but there is so much going on there. And we just touched on a tiny bit of it today, right? Just the smallest bit. And so with that, we'll go to this slide. I don't know how that got there, but again, so if you have any questions, now is a super great time to ask them in the chat if you want to. And if you don't want to, that's okay too. We were very excited to share this with you today. So and we're going to be taking a little break for the holidays. So if you would like, you can go look at some past videos we've done. We've had a lot of fun since March doing videos every single week. And we will probably be doing a special or two. And then we will be back again in January. And tomorrow we have a program in the evening where we will be hosting Poison-Free Malibu. So if you're interested in getting rid of rodenticides or learning why that might be a good idea, then you should totally tune in for that. That's going to be at 7 p.m. So anyway, thank you everyone for joining me today, and I really look forward to seeing you again next time. Does anyone have any questions?